Moving to a new house should have been exciting. After years of living in tiny apartments, I finally had my own place with a real yard and a basement. The house was old but had character. The previous owner had left some furniture behind, which made the whole process easier for me. Everything seemed perfect for the first few weeks. I loved the quiet neighborhood, the friendly neighbors who waved when I walked by, and the sense of space I had never experienced before. But there was something about the house that felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. It started with small things. The basement door would creak open by itself sometimes. I would close it tight before going to bed, but in the morning it would be slightly ajar. I thought maybe the house was settling, or the door frame was warped. Then there were the dreams. Not nightmares exactly, but strange dreams about people I had never met. In these dreams, I would see faces of strangers who looked scared or worried. They would try to tell me something, but I could never understand what they were saying. I would wake up feeling unsettled and anxious. My coworkers noticed I was tired all the time. My friend Julie kept asking if everything was okay. I told everyone I was just adjusting to the new place, but deep down I knew something was wrong. The third week after moving in, I decided to explore every part of the house properly. I had been so busy unpacking and settling in that I hadn't really examined the basement carefully. It was a typical unfinished basement with concrete walls and floors, a water heater in one corner, and some old storage boxes. As I walked around, down there I noticed scratch marks on one of the walls. They looked fresh, not like the normal wear and tear you would expect in an old house. The marks were about chest high and formed strange patterns, almost like someone had been clawing at the wall. I ran my fingers over the scratches and felt a chill run down my spine. Why would someone scratch at a concrete wall like this? And when did it happen? The previous owner had seemed like a normal, quiet person when I met him during the house sale process. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those scratch marks. Around 2 a.m. I heard a sound from downstairs. It was faint, but it sounded like something being dragged across the floor. My heart started racing. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly made my way downstairs. The sound had stopped by the time I reached the basement, but I could smell something strange in the air. It was musty and unpleasant, like something had been damp for a long time. I shined my flashlight around the basement, looking for anything out of place. Everything looked the same as before, but the feeling that something was wrong grew stronger. I was about to go back upstairs when I noticed something I had missed earlier. In the corner behind the water heater, there was a small area where the concrete floor looked different. It was slightly raised, like someone had patched it recently. The color was also a bit lighter than the rest of the floor. I knelt down and touched the area with my hand. It felt solid, but there was definitely something underneath. The patch was roughly rectangular, about the size of a shoebox. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that patch of concrete. I tried to convince myself it was nothing important. Maybe the previous owner had done some plumbing work or fixed a crack in the foundation. But the more I thought about it, the more curious I became. I started having trouble concentrating at work. During lunch breaks, I would find myself researching the history of my house online. I learned that it had been built in 1987 and had only had 3 owners. The previous owner, who sold it to me, had lived there for about 10 years. I also looked up news stories about the neighborhood to see if anything unusual had happened recently. Most of it was typical suburban news, but I did find a few articles about missing persons in the area over the past few years. Nothing that seemed directly connected to my house, but it made me feel uneasy. One evening, I was at the local coffee shop trying to distract myself with a book when an older man at the next table started talking to me. "You're the person who bought the house on Maple Street, aren't you?" he said. I looked up, surprised. "Yes, how did you know?" "Small neighborhood. Word gets around when someone new moves in." He had kind eyes, but looked worried about something. "How are you settling in?" "Fine, I guess. It's a nice house." He nodded slowly, like he was thinking about something important. "Have you spent much time in the basement?" The question caught me off guard. Why would a stranger ask about my basement? "A little bit." "Why?" "Just curious. Old houses sometimes have surprises hidden in them, things the previous owners leave behind." He finished his coffee and stood up to leave. But before walking away, he turned back to me with a serious expression. If you ever find something unusual down there, something that doesn't seem right, you should probably look into it. Some secrets are meant to be discovered. With that mysterious comment, he left the coffee shop, leaving me more confused and worried than ever. That night I sat in my living room staring at the basement door. The old man's words kept repeating in my head. What did he know about my house? Why did he specifically ask about the basement? And what kind of secrets was he talking about? I realized I had to find out what was under that patch of concrete. The not knowing was driving me crazy, and the strange dreams were getting worse every night. Whatever was down there, I needed to face it. I just hoped I was ready for whatever I might find. The next morning came too soon. I barely slept after what happened yesterday. My mind kept going back to that strange conversation with the old man at the coffee shop. His words kept echoing in my head. You need to check your basement. Tonight. Don't wait any longer. I know it sounds crazy. Who listens to random strangers giving weird advice? But something about the way he looked at me made it impossible to ignore. His eyes were serious, almost scared, like he knew something terrible was about to happen. I grabbed my coffee and headed downstairs. The basement always gave me the creeps. It was dark and cold, with concrete walls that seemed to absorb all the warmth from the house. I flicked on the old light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It cast strange shadows everywhere. At first everything looked normal. Old boxes from when I moved in 3 months ago. Some furniture covered in dust sheets that the previous owner left behind. Garden tools leaning against the wall. Nothing unusual. But then I remembered what the old man said. Look behind the water heater. You'll find what you're looking for there. I walked over to the corner where the big water heater stood. It was one of those old metal tanks that probably hadn't been replaced in 20 years. Behind it was just empty space and spider webs. I was starting to feel pretty silly about the whole thing. That's when I noticed something odd. The concrete floor behind the heater had a different color, like someone had patched it recently. The cement was slightly lighter than the rest of the floor. It formed a perfect rectangle, about 3 feet by 2 feet. My heart started beating, faster. I ran upstairs and grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer. Back in the basement, I knelt down and tapped the lighter-colored cement. It sounded hollow underneath. This was definitely not normal. I started chipping away at the edges with the hammer. The cement cracked easily, way too easily for something that should have been solid. Within 10 minutes, I had cleared enough to see that this was definitely a cover for something underneath. I pulled away the broken pieces of cement and found myself staring at a metal box buried in the ground. It was about the size of a shoebox, made of dark steel that looked expensive. Heavy duty, the kind of thing you'd keep important documents in, or secrets. My hands were shaking as I lifted it out. There was no lock, just a simple latch. I sat there on the cold basement floor, holding this mysterious box that had been hidden under my house. The house I thought I knew everything about. Part of me wanted to run upstairs, call the police, and let them deal with whatever this was. But curiosity got the better of me. I had to know what was inside. I opened the latch slowly. Inside the box were 3 things that made my blood run cold. First, there was a stack of photographs, black and white pictures of people I didn't recognize. But they all had one thing in common: red X marks drawn across their faces in what looked like permanent marker. Angry, violent X marks. Second, there was a notebook filled with handwriting. Page after page of notes about different people, their daily routines, where they worked, what time they left their houses, what cars they drove. It read like someone had been watching these people for months. The third thing was the worst. It was a newspaper clipping from 6 months ago. The headline read, "Local woman still missing, after 3 weeks?" Below it was a picture of a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. Someone had drawn a red X across her face, too. I dropped the box and everything scattered across the basement floor. This wasn't just some old documents the previous owner forgot. This was evidence of something terrible, something criminal. The old man at the coffee shop wasn't just giving me random advice. He knew about this box. He knew what was buried under my house. But how? And why did he want me to find it? I grabbed my phone to call the police, but then I stopped. What if the old man was involved? What if this was some kind of trap? What if calling the police would make things worse? I gathered up all the contents and put them back in the box. My mind was racing with questions. Who was the previous owner really? Why did he leave this evidence behind? And most importantly, was the person who did these terrible things still out there? As I sat there in my basement, holding a box full of secrets, I realized my life had just changed forever. I wasn't just a regular person living in a quiet neighborhood anymore. I was now connected to something dark and dangerous, and somewhere out there someone knew I had found their hiding place. The old man's final words came back to me. Once you find what's hidden, there's no going back. Be careful who you trust. I was beginning to understand what he meant. 3 sleepless nights had passed since I found that box. I kept it locked in my bedroom closet, but I could feel its presence every second of every day. Like it was calling to me, reminding me of what I now knew about my house and the person who lived here before me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus at work. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every knock at the door made my heart race. I was becoming paranoid and I knew it, but I had good reason to be scared. The question that kept bothering me most was how the old man at the coffee shop knew about the box. I had to find out, so I went back to the same coffee shop every day, at the same time hoping to see him again. On the 4th day he was there, sitting at the same corner table, drinking the same black coffee. When he saw me walk in, he didn't look surprised. It was like he was expecting me. I walked over to his table with shaky legs. My mouth felt dry, but I had to ask the questions that were eating me alive. You knew I would find it, didn't you? I said, sitting down across from him without being invited. He looked at me with those same serious eyes from before. I hoped you would. Before it was too late. Too late for what? And how did you know about the box in the first place? The old man took a slow sip of his coffee. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. The man who lived in your house before you was my brother. His name was Robert. This hit me like a punch to the stomach. Your brother? But why didn't you tell me that before? Because I wasn't sure you would believe me. And I wasn't sure you were ready to hear the whole truth. I leaned forward. I'm ready now. Tell me everything. He sighed deeply like he was carrying a heavy burden. Robert wasn't always a bad person. We grew up together, played together, went to school together. But something changed in him about 10 years ago. He started becoming obsessed with people, watching them, following them. My hands were getting cold. The notebook in the box, those were real people he was watching? Yes, at first I thought it was just a weird hobby. Maybe he was lonely. But then people started disappearing. People whose names I recognized from conversations with Robert. I felt sick to my stomach. You think your brother was responsible for those disappearances? I don't think it. I know it. His voice was barely above a whisper. I tried to confront him about it twice. Both times he threatened me, said if I ever told anyone, I would be next. So why are you telling me now? Because Robert is dead. He died in a car accident 3 months ago, the same week you moved into his house. This information was too much to process. The previous owner was dead. He was the brother of the man sitting across from me, and he might have been responsible for multiple disappearances. But if he's dead, why am I in danger? Why did you say it might be too late? The old man's face became even more serious. Because Robert wasn't working alone. He had a partner, someone who helped him with his terrible activities, and that person is still alive. My blood turned to ice. How do you know this? Because Robert told me. The last time I saw him, about a month before he died, he was scared. Really scared. He said his partner was getting reckless, taking too many risks. He was worried they would get caught. Did he tell you who his partner was? No. But he did say something that's been bothering me ever since. He said his partner lived close by, someone in the neighborhood who could keep an eye on things. I looked around the coffee shop, suddenly feeling like everyone was watching me. You think this partner knows I found the box? I think it's possible. Robert was very careful about his secrets. If someone noticed you digging around in your basement, or if they saw you acting differently these past few days, they might get suspicious. What am I supposed to do? I can't just pretend I never found it. You need to be very careful. Don't let anyone know what you discovered. Don't trust your neighbors, especially the ones who seem too friendly or too interested in your business. As if on cue, my phone started ringing. I looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. Should I answer it? I asked the old man. He shook his head. Not here. Too many people around. The phone stopped ringing, but then immediately started again. Same unknown number. This is weird. People don't usually call twice in a row unless it's important. Or unless they're trying to find out where you are, the old man said quietly. A chill ran down my spine. I declined the call, but my phone immediately buzzed with a text message from the same number. The message made my hands shake. I know you found something that doesn't belong to you. We need to talk. Tonight. Your backyard, 11 p.m. Come alone, or things will get much worse. I showed the message to the old man. His face went pale. This is what I was afraid of, he whispered. Robert's partner knows, and now they want that box back. What happens if I don't show up? I don't know, but based on what Robert told me about this person, I don't think ignoring them is an option. So what do I do? The old man reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a recorder. Take this with you tonight. Keep it running the whole time. If something happens to you, at least there will be evidence. I stared at the recorder. This was really happening. I was about to meet someone who might be responsible for multiple disappearances. Someone who had been working with a person capable of terrible things. There's something else, the old man said. Robert mentioned that his partner was someone people trusted, someone who seemed normal on the outside, a person no one would ever suspect. Like who? Like a neighbor, a shop owner, maybe even a police officer. The thought that this dangerous person could be someone I saw every day, someone I might have already talked to, made everything feel even more terrifying. As I left the coffee shop that night, I realized I was walking into a situation that could change everything. Either I would finally get answers about what happened in my house, or I might become the next person to disappear. The clock on my phone showed 9:30 p.m. I had 1.5 hours to prepare for the most dangerous conversation of. By 10:45 p.m., I was standing at my kitchen window, looking out at the dark backyard. The recorder the old man gave me was hidden in my jacket pocket, already running. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I had spent the last hour thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if this person was violent? What if they had a weapon? What if this was all a trap to get me alone? But I also knew I couldn't hide forever. If Robert's partner really was still out there, they would find a way to get to me eventually. At exactly 11 p.m., I opened my back door and stepped outside. The night air was cold and still. My backyard was small, surrounded by a wooden fence that suddenly felt like it was closing in on me. You came, good. The voice came from the shadows near my garden shed. I couldn't see who was speaking, but it was a woman's voice, calm and controlled. Not what I was expecting. Step into the light where I can see you, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't think so. Not yet. First, we need to talk about what you found in your basement. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. I don't know what you're talking about. She laughed softly. It was not a friendly sound. Please don't insult my intelligence. I know you found Robert's box. The question is, what do you plan to do with it? Who are you? I asked. Someone who worked very closely with Robert. Someone who has a lot to lose if that box ends up in the wrong hands. You mean the police? The police would be the wrong hands, yes. I took a step closer to where I thought she was standing. Are you the person who helped him hurt those people? There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice had an edge to it. Robert was weak. He got emotional about things. I was the one who kept us organized, kept us safe. The way she said it made my blood run cold. She wasn't denying anything. She was almost proud of it. Why are you telling me this? Aren't you worried I'll go to the police? You could try, but who would believe you? A box of old photos and newspaper clippings? Some handwritten notes? That's not proof of anything specific. She was right, and we both knew it. The contents of the box were suspicious, but they weren't enough to convict anyone of a crime. Besides, she continued, I know things about you now. Where you work, what time you leave your house every morning, which grocery store you shop at. How would you feel if you became the subject of the kind of attention Robert used to give people? The threat was clear. I was being watched just like those people in the photographs had been watched. What do you want from me? I asked. I want that box back, and I want your promise that you'll forget you ever found it. Move on with your life. Pretend none of this ever happened. And if I don't agree, then you'll find out what happened to the people in those photographs. Finally, she stepped out of the shadows. I could see her now in the dim light from my kitchen window. She looked completely normal. Middle-aged, average height, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. She could have been any neighbor walking their dog or coming home from work late. But her eyes were cold, empty, like she was looking at an object instead of a person. You seem surprised, she said, noticing my expression. I guess I expected someone more obvious. That's what made Robert and me such a good team. We looked like everyone else. We blended in. People trusted us. How long were you doing this together? About 8 years. We were very careful, very selective. We only chose people who wouldn't be missed right away. People who lived alone. People who didn't have close family nearby. She was talking about murder like it was a business plan. The casual way she discussed it made everything feel even more terrifying. Robert got sloppy toward the end, she continued. Started keeping trophies, taking risks. That box you found was his idea, not mine. I told him it was dangerous to keep evidence, but he wouldn't listen. Is that why you killed him? Her expression didn't change at all. Robert died in a car accident. Very tragic, very convenient. The way she said it made it clear that Robert's death was no accident. She had eliminated her own partner when he became a liability. Now, she said, let's talk about our arrangement. You give me the box, and I disappear from your life forever. You never see me again. You never tell anyone about this conversation. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because I don't want to hurt you. You seem like a nice person who just got mixed up in something that doesn't concern them. But if you force my hand, I will do whatever it takes to protect myself. I reached into my jacket pocket, feeling the small recorder. Everything she had just said was being recorded. Her confession about Robert, her threats against me, her admission that Robert's death wasn't an accident. I need time to think about this, I said. You have until tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Bring the box and this all goes away. She started walking toward the back fence. Oh, and don't bother calling the police tonight. Like I said, you have no real proof of anything, and if you try to cause problems for me, I'll make sure you regret it. She climbed over the fence and disappeared into the darkness between houses. I stood there in my backyard for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. I had just had a conversation with someone who admitted to multiple murders, someone who killed her own partner, someone who was now threatening to kill me if I didn't cooperate. But I also had something she didn't know about, a recording of everything she had just told me. Back inside my house, I locked every door and window. I closed all the curtains and turned on every light. Then I sat at my kitchen table and listened to the recording. Her voice was clear. Every word was captured perfectly. For the first time since finding that box, I felt like I had some power in this situation. She might have been watching me, but I now had evidence of her crimes, real evidence that could put her in prison forever. The question was, How could I use this recording without putting myself in more danger? I looked at the clock. It was 11:30 p.m. I had less than 24 hours to figure out how to turn the tables on someone who had been getting away with murder for 8 years. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I had hope. She had made a mistake by talking to me tonight, and that mistake might be exactly what I needed to stop her forever. I didn't sleep at all that night. Instead, I spent hours planning what I would do next. The recording was my lifeline, but I had to be smart about how I used it. If I went straight to the police, she might disappear before they could catch her. Or worse, she might come after me before the police could protect me. By morning, I had a plan. It was risky, but it was the only way I could think of to end this nightmare safely. First, I made copies of the recording and stored them in different places. One copy went to my email. Another went on a flash drive that I hid in my car. The third copy I uploaded to a cloud storage account with instructions to automatically send it to the police if I didn't log in for more than 48 hours. Then I called the old man from the coffee shop. I needed his help for what I was planning to do. We met at a different coffee shop across town. I showed him the recorder and played back parts of the conversation from the night before. His face went pale when he heard his brother's partner admit to everything. "This is exactly what we need," he said. "But how do we make sure she gets caught without putting you in more danger?" "That's where I need your help," I said. "I have an idea, but I can't do it alone." I explained my plan. At first, he thought it was too dangerous, but after thinking about it for a while, he agreed it might be our only chance to stop her. That evening, I prepared for the second meeting. I had the original box with me, just like she had demanded, but I also had the recorder running again, and I had backup nearby that she didn't know about. At 11 p.m., I was back in my yard waiting for her. She appeared right on time, stepping out of the shadows like the night before. "Do you have it?" she asked. I held up the metal box. "It's right here." "Good. Bring it to me." I walked halfway across the yard and set the box on the ground. "There it is. Now leave me alone like you promised." She walked over and picked up the box. She opened it and looked inside, checking to make sure everything was still there. "You made the right choice," she said. "Now we can both move on with our lives." "I have a question first," I said. She looked up from the box with annoyance. "What?" "How many people did you and Robert hurt over the years?" Her expression changed. She looked suspicious. "Why do you want to know that?" "I'm just curious. You talked about it so casually last night, like it was just business." "It was business. We were very good at what we did." "So how many?" She smiled, and it was the most chilling thing I had ever seen. 12. 12 people who won't be bothering anyone ever again." "And you're proud of that?" "Pride doesn't have anything to do with it. We saw opportunities and we took them. The world is full of people who won't be missed." She was doing it again, confessing to everything without realizing she was being recorded. "What about Robert? Was killing him just another opportunity?" Her smile faded. "You're asking too many questions. I'm just trying to understand how someone becomes a person who can do what you've done." "You don't need to understand anything. You just need to forget this conversation ever happened." "That's going to be hard to do." She stepped closer to me, and I could see anger in her eyes. "Let me make this very clear. If you ever mention any of this to anyone, I will make sure you join those 12 people. Do you understand me?" "I understand perfectly." That's when the lights came on. Bright spotlights from 3 different directions lit up the entire backyard. She spun around, confused and temporarily blinded. "Police! Nobody move!" Officers came through my back gate and around both sides of the house. They had been hiding in my neighbors' yards, listening to everything through the wireless transmitter the old man had given me. She tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Within seconds, she was on the ground with handcuffs on her wrists. "You set me up," she said, looking at me with pure hatred. "You set yourself up," I replied. "I just gave you the rope." Detective Williams, the officer in charge, walked over to me. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Did you get everything on the recording?" We got it all. Her confession to 12 murders, her admission to killing Robert, and her threats against you. This is more than enough to put her away for life. As they led her to the police car, she shouted back at me, "This isn't over. You have no idea who you're dealing with." But I could see in her eyes that she knew it was over. She had been caught, and there was no way out this time. The old man appeared from where he had been hiding with the police officers. He looked relieved, but also sad. "I'm sorry my brother put you through all this," he said. "It's not your fault. You're the one who helped me stop her." "What happens now?" Detective Williams answered that question. "Now we start investigating those 12 victims she mentioned, and we make sure she never hurts anyone again." It took several more hours to give my complete statement to the police. They needed every detail about finding the box, meeting the old man, and both conversations with Robert's partner. The detective told me that based on the evidence in the box and the recordings, they expected to solve several missing person cases that had been cold for years. 3 months later, I was sitting in a courtroom watching her get sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She never looked at me during the trial, but I could feel her anger from across the room. The old man was there too. After everything was over, he told me he was finally able to sleep at night knowing that his brother's victims had gotten justice. As for me, I decided to sell the house and move somewhere new. Too many bad memories were buried in that basement. But I learned something important during those terrifying weeks. Sometimes ordinary people get caught up in extraordinary situations. When that happens, you have two choices. You can hide from the truth and hope it goes away, or you can face it head on and do what's right even when it's scary. I chose to face it, and because of that choice, 12 families finally got answers about what happened to their loved ones. A dangerous person was taken off the streets, and I learned that I was stronger and braver than I ever thought possible. The house sold quickly to a young family with 2 small children. Before I moved out, I made sure the new owners knew the complete history of what had happened there. They deserved to know the truth. On my last day in the house, I went down to the basement one more time. The hole where the box had been buried was filled in now, covered with new concrete that matched the rest of the floor. But I could still see the outline where it used to be. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous secrets are hidden in the most ordinary places. And sometimes when you're brave enough to dig them up, you can change everything.